Hey everybody, welcome back to another Builder365 podcast. I'm Jeff Shore. That's Amy O'Connor. Hi, Amy.
Hi, good to see you.
Good to see you too. And here we are, obviously the holiday time, but just a few days away from the end of the year. Are you already got all your plans in place for 2025? You're already thinking about 20. I know for some people who are listening to this podcast, it's just we haven't got to Christmas yet, but others will listen after Christmas. So what are you thinking? Are you ready for the year to come?
You're about as ready as I'll ever be. I mean, you know, from a planning perspective, Jeff, you know that our calendars populate usually September, October. And
Right.
so having that plan and knowing what your calendar is going to be and blocking off time, all that's done. I understand my cadence. I'm feeling good about the structure of next year.
What about it's that time of year when people make their New Year's resolutions. What do you think? New Year's resolutions. Are you in or you out? What are you thinking?
I'm a big thumbs down on it. The data would suggest that it's not very effective. And I don't know, maybe this is bad, but I've never really much done that. Although I did try about 4 years ago, I decided that I was going to eat healthier. And by January 6th, I was eating an entire Pizza Hut pizza by myself in the Denver airport. So, I mean, there you go.
But in your defense, and for those of you who don't travel much, there are times when you get off a plane and you're hungry and you look around and there's garbage. I mean, it's so hard to get a good meal at an airport. Do you think, but that's getting better though in some airports, right? Don't you think?
Yes, but it's really slow progress. It's really, because our options are usually pizza, sandwich, cheeseburger. Like that's really usually it.
Right.
And I do love all three, but
I know that's the problem. I think some airports are ahead of the curve on this, but most of them are way behind. Like your home airport at Dulles. Oh, terrible and not good on the food stuff. Yeah.
So nasty. Yeah. Although, have you seen this new cool thing? It's like a little convenience shop in the airport, or they probably have in other places too, where it just knows who you are and you walk in, you do nothing, you put stuff in a bag and walk out and they charge you. Yeah. I don't know whether to be completely freaked out by that or amazingly in love because I don't have to interact with anybody. I mean, it's not a 50-50.
Right. Yeah. But I've seen that. I saw it just a couple of weeks ago at the Dallas airport. It was like, okay. And there was one person who was working there, but they were just sort of, I don't know what they were doing. They were just standing there looking around. So yeah. And just, in Amy's defense, Amy and I, when we're out there, we are talking to people all day long. And sometimes you need to just not talk to people for a little bit. So I'm going to admit, I once said to a very chatty person who sat next to me on an airplane, I once said, I have a very important nap to take. I did say those words, but I needed the sleep. And what are you going to do? So, the top New Year's resolutions for 2024, according to the website statista.com, save more money, exercise, eat healthy, spend more time with family, friends, lose weight. Man, they never change, do they? Everything
never change.
Although 19% said they want to spend less time on social media. That one's actually a little depressing. I think we need a much higher percentage of people wanting to spend less time on social media. But I also found a list of resolutions that people made that were just plain fun or funny. So just a couple here. The resolutions made with tongue planted firmly in cheek. One, exercise my right to eat more chocolate. I vow to keep my plants alive for more than a month. I want to perfect the art of pretending to listen during Zoom meetings. That's a legit goal right there. I will attempt to fold fitted sheets without summoning dark forces. Good one. I'll try not to judge my cat for sleeping 8 hours a day, right up your alley, Amy. To develop the ability to remember names, even if it's just mine. And I will strive to say no more often unless it involves dessert. So there you go. Those are pretty good right there.
Yeah, they really are. If I have to, I know you said the cat thing with napping, but honestly, mine is a peeing issue, not a napping issue. But the one that I probably identify with most is the whole houseplant thing. I treat houseplants like you buy flowers at the grocery store. You buy them, they die, you replace them, right? There's not like a little care system that happens in between. I mean, they're just going through the rotation.
Yeah, I do know that that in my house, my plants are always healthy, and I figured that out because on a regular basis, all the plants come together on the kitchen counters, and then they all look nice. And I don't know how that happens. They all come
It's
together, and
so
then they go back
weird.
to the places. It's sort of like with my clothes. I put them in this basket in the bathroom. And then a little while later, they show up folded in my drawer.
Oh,
Someday,
don't go there. All
yeah.
the wives are groaning right now. I'm sorry, ladies. I'll do better.
Well, I've heard that there's a washing machine in my house. I don't know where it is. I haven't identified it yet, but my somebody told me that there's a washing machine, so we'll figure it out. Yeah, yeah.
I'll balance us
Uh,
out, everyone. My husband does the laundry. All right, so we got you got both. You got both happening.
Love it, love it, love it. Hey, let's talk business, Amy. How do you sum up the year when we think about home builders and what they've been through? How do you sum up the year?
Man, I just look at the year and say it's a master class in resilience. I
Yeah.
mean, there's just so many things, persistent labor shortages, continuing affordability issue with interest rates. We were out of toilet paper again. Where did that come from? I thought we'd figured out our toilet paper. So there's just all these things that the builders have had to figure out. And the adaptability and the flexibility that I've seen has been really, really impressive. But it's been tough. It has been.
Yeah, there's no question about it, but I think you make a really good point. There has been a required nimbleness for builders to try and figure out how to adapt to everything's going that is going on around them, and to adapt very, very quickly. It's not easy to take this huge, a cargo ship and turn on a dime. But as an industry, it is absolutely one of the things that we have had to do. And I would say that's true across the board for building companies, but also for the people who make up the building companies, for the changes that affect our superintendents and our salespeople and our mortgage officers and everybody else. So yeah, I think that this is a good way to be able to look at it. I also look at it from the perspective that we'll look back and say that 2024 was a really good year. I think most people are going to say, was it harder to get sales in 2024 than it was in 2021? Oh, yeah, there's no question about it. Were there ongoing difficulties and shortages and things that we had to deal with? Yeah, there's no question about it. So everybody was affected. But I think we'll look back on 2024 with a certain amount of pride as an industry. I think we'll be able to look at it and say that's a year when we should be proud we performed well. But what about 2025? What are you thinking about for 2025, and what buyers and builders are facing right now?
I have three big predictions here.
Yeah,
I think
sure.
we're going to see more mergers and acquisitions.
We're
I don't know
already
if you.
seeing that those waves
I
are
mean,
rolling in right now already. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And did you see that we right now are at 19? There have been 19. The average
Wow.
in a year is 12. So we're seven above the average. And I'm
Yeah.
just looking at all of the tea leaves and I'm thinking we're going to keep seeing that. I think we're going to see a big level of that. I think we're going to see affordability drive innovation. This is a little bit what you were talking about on another podcast, Jeff, about, how do we make spaces work in different ways? I think we're going to see more ADUs, right? The dwelling units that you can put either on the bottom of a townhome or maybe somewhere else on the property. I think maybe we're going to see more build to rent that sometimes is a little bit more accessible, higher density, all of those things. But the affordability is going to force the innovation.
Yeah.
And then I think the third thing that I'm really thinking about here is that I think we're going to see builders continue to try to figure out this whole AI thing. I mean, we've seen builders play with it. We're really not sure, right? How do we integrate it? But the first person who figures it out in a big way, they're gonna own it. I mean, it's
Yeah.
gonna be really amazing for them.
Yeah. Right now, it feels for many builders like it's more of a toy than a
Yeah.
tool. And yeah, I'm able to play with it over here a little bit, and that's great. But when it comes to really advancing, I agree with you. I don't think we're there yet. One other thing that I'm thinking about for 2025, and And I think we're going to see an increase in buyer uncertainty, and we've seen it in 2024 already. We had a contentious election. We've got inflation concerns, war in the Middle East and in Ukraine, and just there's a lot of tension, a lot of angst, a lot of animosity, and that all, even though it really shouldn't feed into our home buying sentiment, it does. And when we are uncertain, then what happens? When our uncertainty goes up, then our confidence goes down. And so I'm just thinking about it from the home buyer's perspective right now. I think it's going to be incumbent upon us as builders to try and figure out, how do we encourage, how do we share positive messages? What do we do to try and reduce that anxiety, that uncertainty? Because if you look at 2021 as an example, when people were buying in droves, sight unseen, why? Because they felt a certainty that this was a good investment, that the prices were going to go up. And when there is a greater degree of certainty, there's a greater degree of confidence. When that level of certainty drops, the confidence drops with it. And I think that's where we have to step in. And I'm not just talking about salespeople, by the way. I'm talking about everybody who's customer facing, needing to lean into this positive optimism. In other words, we need to make it fun to buy a home. We need to make it fun for our customers. We need to make them feel really, really good about what it is that they're doing. And it should be fun, right? It should be one of the most enjoyable things we ever go through. Alas, oftentimes it's not. But I know you share that too, right? You've talked for many, many years to our clients about the idea of how we have a greater degree of celebration in what it is that we do.
I mean, you've hit on so many things there. I could talk for 2 days on all of those topics. And I think one of the interesting things to think about is, while we talk about buyer uncertainty being a major inhibitor in their decision-making ability, I think we also have to look at the other side of that. And I challenge leaders with this is, well, what's your frontline sales team think? Are they certain? Do they think it's a good time to buy? Because if you got a salesperson over here who doesn't think it's a good time to buy, and you have an uncertain buyer, I will show you nothing. I will show you a sale that never happens. And so it's interesting. We're trying to talk about, calming the buyer down and building certainty. But in a leadership team, if we're not out there building certainty with the people who are communicating that to the buyers, then we're missing it.
Yeah, it's a really, really good point. Sometimes you see cultures of optimism, and sometimes you see cultures of negativity. And that culture cultures are always a combined effort, but there's no question about it. The leadership is the one who's going to drive that culture more than anything else. And so, what does that look like? It's a valid point, and I think a little soul searching for anybody in a leadership position to ask that question. What are we doing to try and build that atmosphere of positivity, of optimism, and such that it wouldn't be a program to bring that to our customers. We would just be sharing that from the soul. So.
Yeah.
Amy, before we wrap it up, let's talk about the resolution to grow, and then we'll let people take that in any direction that they want to. But I want to move beyond, resolve, right? I make a resolution to do this. And as we all know, it often happens on a whim, and, I may or may not jot it down, but it doesn't really go anywhere until you move into plan and then track. So can you talk a little bit about that? Because right now, a lot of people who are listening to this are thinking, well, what do I want to do in 2025? What do I want to be in 2025? I think this is a good time to talk about it.
I struggle with those questions too. And I see the value in setting goals. But when you just sit down and you ask yourself those big questions, to me, that's really hard to get your brain started. So one of the things that we do in Women's Leadership Circle, and we start the year with it and we end the year with it, is a circle of life. The wheel of life is actually what we call it. Wheel of life. Yeah. There's a wheel of life. And listen, you can go find one. You can Google it. I use a very simple one that looks at eight different areas of your life. And then you shade in for each of the little pie slices. How well do you think you're doing there? So you step back and you get some sense of, where am I balanced? Where am I imbalanced? Why? What's happening? How do I feel about it? And there is something about seeing it that way, that visual of places where I'm just not doing so well. And I got to tell you, the first time I did it, I realized I am not fun. I'm not. There's one of the sections that talks about fun and recreation, and it's 5 levels, and I'm like, 2. So apparently I have to plan to be fun. I can't be spontaneously fun. But the second sort of piece of that activity, if you will, is to take those white spots in your wheel of life that you did not shade in and then write your action plan in those. If I want to be able to shade this piece, what do I need to do? So for me, it's a better way to set goals because it's so visual. You can very much track it. I suggest you do it on a quarterly basis to see where you're at. And it was so rewarding to do that at the beginning of Women's Leadership Circle. And, we just wrapped up our masterminds, Jeff, several weeks ago. And so to see them at the end and look at them compare and the growth that had happened, it was phenomenal and it was very heartwarming. So it does all the things you want it to do. It punches you in the gut where you need to be punched in the gut. It shows you where you're doing a great job, gives you the opportunity to plan, and it's definitely a tool for tracking. I just love it.
Yeah. It sort of reminds me a little bit of when Stephen Covey wrote The 7 Habits. One of the things that you do early in that book is you define your roles. What are all the different roles in your life? And then you say, well, here's my role as a business person. Here's my role as a father, as a husband, as a friend, whatever it is. Well, then you go back and you challenge that against your time and energy. Well, are those roles important to you? Because you vote with your time and your energy. So, when it was the first time I did it, I was like, wow, my wheel is lopsided over here, right? And I think that's, but. As Dan Sullivan always says, all change begins by telling the truth. And so that the wheel of life sounds like a truth-telling exercise more than anything else. The good news is that you can change that truth, right? You can say that this is the truth that I brought into it, but with that right intention, I can change my truth. And I think that that's the idea of growth, is that if we look into it and go, there is room for me over here, the truth is this might be where I am, but another truth is I don't have to stay here. So what does that look like? And it doesn't look like a resolution. It looks like tracking and accountability to yourself and maybe to people around you. But if you're not willing to do that, then nothing happens here. So we want to encourage you, if you want to call it a resolution, that's fine, but don't stop there. There's got to be a plan. And there's got to be a way to track it. This is the only way that this is going to work. Having said that, we do wish you the very, very best for 2025 and all that 2025 has to offer. It has been a wonderful experience for us this year to bring you the Builder365 podcast. We wish you nothing but the best for the holiday season and for 2025. And we'll see you back here right after the change of the calendar. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Now go out and change someone's world. Take care.